So I actually was going to ask you next because I didn't know that you have a background in engineering. You did your engineering from BITS Pilani, and you did your have another degree in mathematics also from BITS, and then you did your MBA, and then you were a part of corporate world. So it's an unlikely journey for a historian, and obviously very antithetical to how people perceive historians in general. Sort of befuddled looking and not very eloquent, and people who tend to drone on and on and on. So you're not a trained historian, but in your journey, you would have probably, I'm sure you read a lot. So who would you say are, your gurus in the field, or people you look up to, or people, historians that you, who are trained in the soil of this earth, not people who've written about India from across the shores, but raised here? Who are the people who've inspired you, the historians themselves?
Yeah, no, that's a fabulous question again, because my first, this whole, while I was doing this research, I was also reading copiously right from childhood, thanks to my parents who instilled this reading bug in me, along with the interest in classical music, in which they made me train in right from the age of 5 or 6 or so in Carnatic classical music. But this introduction to reading happened also very early, and one of the earliest non-fiction writers from India whom I really, really admired and continue to admire is Arun Shourie. The the clinical manner in which he wrote several of his books, The World of Fatwas, or Worship False Gods, and about secularism, about so many of these, the eminent historians, his book, which kind of exposed me. I didn't know when I was reading it as a teenager that, one day I will be face to face with the same eminent historians, and who will be playing from the same playbook that Arun Shourie had put together. So that just shows that their thinking has not evolved over 20, 30 years. The same toolkit, very predictable and boring. That's how these people operate in a cabal fashion. So he was my introduction to a lot of what we would call as Indic, writing. And from there, I read Sitaram Goyalji, to Jadunath Sarkar, R.C. Majumdar, Neelkant Shastri, B.K. Rajwade, several of them, largely who would be construed or termed as nationalist historians, whatever that term means.
As if it were an abusive word.
Yeah. So several of these people, in my years of growing up and also thereafter, I still continue to revere these books that they have written. And most of them, it also showed how they were swimming completely against the tide, because the tide then in their times was both a regime that was unfavorable to them, and also the thraldom with which the discipline of history was kept in by the so-called trained professional historians. I think there is merit in getting trained in history and in the tools of historiography, which I eventually did as part of my PhD, which I did from the University of Queensland, in both in the history of music, a particular aspect of our musical history, the coming of the gramophone and its impact on Indian classical music, historical, social, cultural, and a musicological analysis of this episode. So those 4 years, of course, till then, a lot of it was amateur work, I would say, which was guided by, the spirit of inquiry, the spirit of reform. But the training did help in those 4 years to learn the tools of, academic research rigor and historical rigor, and how do you frame your arguments. That was certainly helpful. But other than that, I think this whole fascination that only trained historians can write history, I think that's a misnomer, because even, if you see how a lot of British accounts, particularly, which we still revere and use, these historians also would use, would be by,
I'm sure
engineers.
Yes.
They were largely engineers, they were surveyors and others.
So-called anthropologists, right?
Yes. So, like say Francis Buchanan, a traveler, or many others who were doing land surveys and all that. Then they were so fascinated by, or they wanted it to put something on about the place. for their masters to use or whatever. So a lot of them were such people who have chronicled and whose works we still use. So it's nothing that, you have to have a university in which a few people are sitting like a cabal and only those who belong to that clique are the ones who are to be considered as historians. I think that's a modern, modern day problem, which gets further accentuated when it has ideological, underpinnings.
It's also about control, right? Who is
Yes.
controlling the power,
True.
knowledge
And-
center? So
True.
obviously they do not want, every Johnny come lately to come and tell them,
Correct.
according to them, this is, so yeah, so it's about controlling knowledge.
Yes.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.